Hi there, and welcome to a project video where you'll build and deploy a YouTube clone application in React.js using the newest version of Material UI with a stunning new video section, custom categories, responsive channel and video cards, channel pages, and most importantly, video pages where you can play the video straight from the app, see related videos, and much more. JSM Media is the best modern, fully functional YouTube clone application that you can currently find right here on YouTube. By building this single web app with me, you'll get the knowledge needed to build any website that uses APIs. And talking about the category of websites that use APIs, almost every single website in the world you can think of uses an API. There are many other tutorials out there teaching you how to create a website consisting of a navigation bar, a few divs, and a footer. Boring, right? Today, you'll learn how to develop a professional website and deploy it to the internet so that you can share it with your friends, potential clients, and put it on your portfolio. You might be wondering, what are the prerequisites for building such an amazing website? You just need to know a bit of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It would be great if you already watched our beginner React course. It's going to be linked down in the description. With that, you'll be able to develop this website using the most in-demand technologies today, such as React.js and Material UI. And with just a couple of other dependencies, you'll build everything from scratch alone by watching this video today. We're going to start simple, and then we're going to move to more complex topics as we go. Alongside building this application, you'll learn React functional components and their reusability, React file and folder structure. You'll achieve mastery using Material UI version 5, perfectly placed media queries for satisfactory responsiveness on all devices, using the RapidAPI Visual Studio Code extension for testing APIs, and most importantly, you'll learn how to fetch data from unlimited sources using RapidAPI. Essentially, you'll become a master of working with APIs. If this video reaches 20,000 likes, I'm recording a new video teaching you how to fetch data from multiple sources. Before creating a folder for our project code, we must first visit RapidAPI. The link is going to be down in the description. The making of this entire app is possible only due to RapidAPI, because we'll be using their YouTube version 3 API. This API is just one out of thousands of APIs available in their API hub. You're going to learn how to use most of these endpoints from this API. We're going to talk about suggested videos, search, video details, channel videos, and much more. By utilizing this API, you'll be able to later on create your own projects using any of the APIs listed right here. So, to be able to use these APIs, make sure to use the RapidAPI link in the description, and then you can click sign up or log in at the top right. You can log in using Google, GitHub, Facebook, or just your regular email. Once you're in, you'll be redirected to RapidAPI's hub. This was the first step in our video. Now let's create our React application, and then later on, we're going to come back here and then make calls to this great YouTube API. Before we dive into the project, I have an incredibly important announcement for you. We've recently added the free resources section to the jsmastery.pro website. The link is in the description. So from now on, alongside the professional project-based courses, such as Filmpire and NFT Marketplace, you can get entirely free guides and ebooks about React, Web3, and front-end, back-end, and full-stack development. If you decide to get the courses by using the link in the description, a special discount code will automatically be applied for you during checkout. With that said, let's dive right into today's video. Here on JavaScript Mastery, we always start from scratch, and I teach you every step of the way. So let's get started by creating a new empty folder on our desktop. In this case, we're building our beautiful YouTube_clone application. So let's call our folder YouTube_clone and then drag and drop it into your code editor. In this case, we'll be using Visual Studio Code, currently the best and the most popular editor out there. Before we install the necessary dependencies, we can install one Visual Studio Code extension that we're going to use throughout this video. So head to Extensions and then search for RapidAPI. That's going to bring you to the RapidAPI client extension through which we'll be able to test our APIs while we are developing them straight inside of Visual Studio Code. So for now, just install it and we're going to use it later on. Once you expand your Visual Studio Code, you can head to View and then Terminal. We're going to immediately initialize our React application and then create all of the necessary dependencies. So let's start by clearing out our terminal and then running npx create-react-app and then / to create it in the current repository. This process usually takes just about a minute, so let's let it do its thing and I'll be right back. And there we go. Our application alongside its file and folder structure has been initialized. Now, before we go ahead and run it, let's first install all of the necessary dependencies that we'll be using throughout this project. To check out the dependencies, we can go to our package.json. Inside of here, you can see some general scripts needed to run our application, and you can also see a list of all the dependencies that we're currently using. To make sure that your application uses the exact same versions of dependencies as I'm using in this video, you can click the GitHub gist link down in the description and then copy the dependencies alongside their versions straight from there. Once you do that, you can select your dependencies and simply paste over them. As you can see, we're installing Emotion React and Emotion Styled, as these are the needed dependencies for Material UI to work. While we're on the topic of Material UI, we're also installing that. MUI is one of the best UI kits for React. It is intuitive and it has that functional design that we're all used to. All the most common components that we use in all of our applications. So we'll be using MUI Material as our UI kit of choice for building our YouTube clone application. We're gonna also install Icons Material to have some icons, then of course Axios to make API calls, and we have React Router DOM for our routing. And one thing I would like to mention is that we are using the latest versions of MUI and React Router DOM. Both of these packages have recently created their new versions, MUI coming with version 5 and then React Router DOM coming with version 6. So by watching this video, know that you're up to date with all of the latest versions of all packages. Once you paste those dependencies in, you can go to View, Terminal, and then run npm install -legacy-peer-deps. This is going to install the same exact versions of dependencies, so we can proceed with building this application. Once your dependencies install, there might be some vulnerabilities, and if you want to fix that, you can run npm added fix. But at this point, we're not going to worry about that too much. Now, let's start our application to see it on localhost 3000. And it's immediately going to open up on localhost 3000. We right now have one error, but we're going to immediately fix that. And if you close this, you can see that our application is up and running. So what we can do now is explore the file and folder structure. You can notice we have a Git folder, which was automatically initialized for us by Create React App. We have our node modules where all of our dependencies code is in. We have our public folder and we have our source folder. Besides that, we have a git ignore to ignore which files go to Git, and then package lock and package.json to keep track of our dependencies. Finally, we have a README to explain what's going on once you actually publish this to GitHub. In this case, the most important folder is our source folder. Inside of there, we have quite a few files, but in this case, we're going to make it even simpler and create everything on our own so you exactly know how React works behind the scenes. let's go ahead and delete this source folder. And let's right click right here on the root and create a new source folder from scratch. Inside of there, the most important file we need to have is going to be the index.js file. Inside of index.js, we can import React from React, and we can also import React DOM from React-DOM. Now in here, we'll also have to import our app.js. So let's create a new file called app.js, and this is going to be the starting point of our application. So let's create a basic functional component by running RAFCE. If this command didn't work for you, then you need to go under extensions and search for ES7 Plus React Redux React Native Snippets. Install this extension, and then you're going to have access to a lot of useful React snippets, such as RAFCE. Now that we have our app, we can go back to index and we can import it by saying import app from /app. Now we can create a root of our application by saying const root is equal to React DOM dot create root. This is new with React version 18. And then we need to pass in the document dot get element by ID root. This is the only place in our entire React application where we're literally fetching from the DOM. We're getting the div with an ID of root. So let me show you what I mean. Inside of the public folder, we have an index.html file. And it looks like a lot is happening, but if we remove all of these comments, like this, there's one more, remove everything that shouldn't be there, and indent this properly, you can notice that this is nothing more than a simple HTML5 document that only has one div, and that is a div with an ID of root. While we're here, we can also add a few additional links to make sure that our Material UI works properly. So you can go to MUI.com, click Get Started, and then head to Installation. There you can notice that we have to install some packages, which we already have done, and now we have to also add the icons and the font as two additional link tags. So let's copy this right here and paste it right above the title. We can of course repeat the process with the font icons. Let's indent that properly. And now we have everything we need. While we're here, we can also rename this application. I'm gonna do JSM Media. Feel free to call it however you want to. Great. With that said, we can now go back to our index.js, and we can use this root by saying root.render, and then the only thing we want to render is the self-closing app component. Great. And before heading to the browser, we just have to add the / client to our React DOM import. Again, this was changed in version 18 of React. And now that we've updated that, just before we check the app in the browser, we can open up our terminal, press Ctrl+C and then Y to stop it from running, and then we can simply run npm start one more time to make sure that all the changes were properly updated. And as you can see, this ran our application in the browser. If I zoom it in, we can see app right there. And that's exactly what we were expecting, because if we now go into the app, you can see that that's the only thing we're returning. There is just one more thing left to add to our index.js, and those are our simple styles. Alongside all the components we'll be creating in Material UI, I created a simple index.css style sheet that's going to help us with some generic styles. So in that same GitHub gist down below where you found all of the packages, you can find an index.css file. Simply paste it inside of the source. So that's going to be source index.css, and there you can see about 100 long CSS file that simply has some general styles, such as resetting the HTML and the body's margins, paddings, setting up the regular anchor tags, and so on. And now, of course, we have to go back inside of the index.js and say import, and then that's going to be /index.css. Great. With that said, we're now ready to go inside of the app.js and start creating the structure of our entire application. Let's get started. To start creating our layout, we can first import a couple of things from React Router DOM. And those are going to be browser router, routes, and then a route. And those are coming from React-router-DOM. We're going to also import something known as a box coming from add-mui/material. A box is nothing more than a simple div element. Now, when it comes to the output of this app, we can turn it into an instant return by simply using the parentheses right here and then removing the return keyword. There we go. Now, instead of a div right here, we'll be returning a browser router that we're going to use to wrap our entire application with. Inside of that browser router, we can render a box element, and that box is going to have an SX prop equal to background color is going to be #000, which is pure black. Inside of that box, we're going to have our navbar. For now, we can simply type it out. Later on, we're going to turn this into a real component. And then below our navbar, we can have our routes. This is a built-in component by React Router DOM, and inside of it, we can place individual route components. Our first route is going to have a path of /, meaning just the root route, and it's going to be exact. Also, it's going to have an element, which is going to render, and that is going to be a feed component. So we can create a self-closing feed component like this. In the browser, we're going to get an error that feed is not yet defined, but that's fine for now. We're going to have many different errors, but let's just go through building the entire project structure first, and then we're going to focus on file and folder structure and creating those actual components. So we can move to our second route, which is going to have a path equal to /video/ and then colon ID like this. This means that if we go to /video and then some random sequence of numbers or letters like 123, 123, we're going to go to a specific videos page. And we can render a new element there, which is going to be a video detail page. Now we can duplicate this 2 more times. Instead of rendering the video for the next one, we can render a specific channel. So everything is going to be the same, but instead of video detail, it's going to be channel detail. And finally, the last one is going to go to search. And then we want to have a specific search term that we want to search for. And this is going to render the search feed. Great. Now we have almost all of the components that we have to create, and we can also turn this navbar into its own component. So that brings us to our next step. The routes are ready, but let's go ahead and create those actual components. We can do that by creating a new folder inside of the src folder, and we can call it components. Inside of those components, let's go ahead and create those 5 components. The first one on our list is going to be navbar.jsx, and we can simply run RAFCE inside of it to create a simple navbar component. We can proceed by creating the feed.jsx component, and the same thing, RAFCE. Let's proceed with the third one, which is going to be video detail.jsx, and we can again run RAFCE. The fourth one is going to be channel detail.jsx, and we can again run RAFCE. And for now, there's just one more left to go, and that is going to be the search feed.jsx, and we can again run RAFCE. With this simple structure, we created 5 different components, which we can now import inside of our app.js. To import them, you can double-click the navbar keyword right there, press Ctrl-space if you're in Windows, and then simply press Enter. This is going to automatically import the navbar from /components/navbar. If this didn't work for you, if I'm not mistaken, you'll need an extension called IntelliSense. So if you search for Path IntelliSense and npm IntelliSense, you can install those two, and then by pressing Ctrl-space or Command-space, it's going to give you an immediate import. With that said, if we now repeat that process for all other components, you're going to notice that we're going to have 5 extra lines. And that really clutters our app.js view. 5 different imports. This is not what you want to have. I'm going to show you how we can import all of these in one single line. For that, we're going to need one extra file inside of the components folder. So let's create a new file called index.js. Inside of there, we can say export, in curly braces, default as. The setup is a bit tricky, but you'll be able to repeat it from now on for all other components. And you can say default as, the name of the component, from / and then the file. And now we can repeat this 4 more times. The second time, we're going to have the feed. Then we're going to have the channel detail. After that, we're going to have the search feed. So let's do that right here. And finally, we're going to have the video detail. There we go. So now we're exporting all of these components, and now back inside of the app.js, we can remove all of this, and we can say import. Now inside of curly braces, we can just start naming these components, and they'll be coming from / components. That makes the most sense, right? Import Navbar from components. Import feed from components. Import video detail, channel detail, and search feed. All of these are coming straight from / components. Can you see how simple it is to understand this and how simple it is to look at this code? We created our entire app structure by using this great file and folder system in React.js. Now, if we go back into our application, you're going to notice that right now we can see the navbar and we can see the feed because we are on localhost 3000. But if we switch to something like that's going to be search and then / JavaScript mastery, you can see that now we can see the search feed. We can repeat the process for something like video and then 1, 2, 3. Let's remove the search first. And then you can see that we're going to have the video detail. So our routing is indeed working. If you want to get some more practice on how to build professional React.js application that follow the cleanest possible code standards on larger projects, I would strongly suggest that you check out jsmastery.pro. On there, we create even longer and more comprehensive projects. One of the best examples of that is the FilmPar course. There, in the span of 10 hours, you're going to learn how to build a professional movie application by using Redux, Material UI, and you're even going to learn how to add voice functionalities using Alan AI. It's all covered, and I teach it step by step, just as I teach it right here on this channel. We're going to build different pages such as discover movies, movie details, recommendations, and save to favorites. This is how the final application will look like. It's going to teach you how to use Material UI to its fullest potential, and it's also going to teach you how to do routing, and of course, it's going to be fully mobile responsive. As you can see, it seems just like a native mobile application. But when I say mobile, I don't just mean mobile. I mean tablet. It's also going to be for laptops, larger laptops, and even 4K devices. So it works great on every device size. The course contains some React.js knowledge that you'll utilize across all of your React projects. But with that said, let's go ahead and continue with our YouTube clone application. We can clean our working environment a bit by closing all of the currently open files, besides the app.js, and then you can control-click to go into the navbar. Navbar being at the top is going to be the first component that we're going to implement together. So let's go ahead and get started. We can start with our navbar by importing one component from MUI. That's going to be a stack. It's coming from @MUI / material. And if you want to check out what one component is, you can simply hover over it, check out the demo site, and then click stack right there. This is going to immediately bring you to that component's documentation page. So you can see that a stack is used for one-dimensional layouts. It can be used in a column, but it can also be used in a row. So in this case, we'll be using it in a row to form our navigation bar. And throughout this project, we'll be using a lot of different MUI components. So if you're wondering what some of them do, simply hover over them and then go to the demo page. You can also just research this documentation page a bit. They have all the components listed right here on the left side. So if you want to use one of these components, for example, a button, you can read more about it here and immediately get the code to use it in your application right from here. With that said, we can also import a link component coming from React Router DOM. Now, inside of our navigation bar, we'll also be using our logo. And to speed up the process of creating this application and to teach you more things in shorter amount of time, I've already prepared that logo for you. You can find it in that same GitHub gist you visited before down in the description. There, you'll be able to find a constants.js folder. So that's going to be a special folder containing some things we'll be using throughout our application. First of all, create a new folder inside of our source folder called utils. This stands for utilities, something that we used all across our application. Inside of there, create a new file called constants.js. And then inside of there, you can paste that file that you can find in the GitHub gist. If you quickly look through this, you can see that we're just importing some icons. We have our logo URL right here. We have our array with categories that we're going to use on our sidebar. And then we have some strings for videos that don't have a URL, a channel URL, or a title. Everything is right here. And as you can see, there is absolutely no logic included here. It's just some strings and arrays that we'll be using throughout our application. So now we can go back inside of our navbar and we can import, that's going to be a logo coming from /utils / and constants. There we go. We can turn this into an instant return by removing the return keyword and also using the parentheses right here. And then we can return a stack element. That stack is going to have a direction equal to row and align items equal to center. It's also going to have a P of 2, which stands for padding, and it's going to have a special SX prop. With SX, you can provide any styles to your Material UI components. So if you're using an MUI component, you can give it an SX prop and therefore provide the styles right here in line. We can give it a position style, which is going to be sticky. We want it to stick at the top. We're going to also give it a background, which is going to be #000, which is pure black. Then we want to position it at the top by saying top is 0 and give it a justify content, which is going to be set to space between. Great. Now we can expand this in a couple of lines just to see it better. We are providing this component some kind of properties, direction, align items, SX, and so on. So what are these and how do we know that a stack accepts those properties? Well, you can check the API part when you hover over that component and then click Stack API. In here, you can see a list of all of the properties that a specific component accepts. And again, as we keep going through the video, you can simply go to some of the component's API documentation and then see what does a specific prop do. With this video, I want to teach you not only how to build this project, but rather teach you how to learn by reading the documentation on your own. That is the only way you're going to become an independent developer. And again, that's the same thing that we do on JSMastery.pro. So if you like the teaching here, you're definitely going to love it there. With that said, we now have our stack component and we are ready to start implementing our navbar. At the start, we're going to have a link, and that link is going to just point to home. It's going to have a style equal to display flex, and also align items is going to be set to center. Inside of there, we want to render an img tag, which is going to have a source equal to logo. Alt is going to be set to logo, and then we can set the height to be equal to 45. And you might have noticed that so far we didn't really look into the browser. And that's okay. That's because we have been just focusing on the structure. But now this logo is the first thing that we can actually see. So what we can do is divide our window into two smaller parts. On the left side, we can have our code editor, and then on the right side, we can have the app we're developing so we can see the changes live. Right here on the second tab, I also have a finished version of the application that you are going to build today. So we can instantly see what we're building at the moment. Right now, we're building the navigation part, so the logo is already there, but now we have to create this search bar. So from time to time, we're going to reference this application to show you exactly what we're building and how. Now let's go back and let's implement the search bar. That search bar is going to be right here below this link, and it's going to be a new component that we're going to create. So let's simply create a new component inside of the components folder called search bar.jsx. And for now, we can run RAFCE. We can also export it right here inside of our index from the components and say export default as search bar from /search bar. Now, of course, if we go back to the navbar, we can import it. That's going to be import search bar from /search bar. And if we go on localhost 3000, you can see that now we have right here the feed, and on the right side we have the search bar. Now, of course, we chose the dark mode, so everything is currently dark, but now we can go into that search bar and start implementing it so that we can actually see it right there. Inside of our search bar, we can import the use state hook coming from React. We can also import the use navigate hook, which is coming from React Router DOM. We can import a couple of components such as a paper and an icon button. And these are coming from @MUI/material. And finally, we can import a search icon, which is coming from @MUI/icons-material. And that's going to be it, but we also have to add curly braces around it. There we go. Now we have all the imports that we need. Inside of our search bar, we can render a paper component. So right here, that's going to be paper. And a paper is nothing more than a simple div that has a white background and some elevation. It appears like it's floating on the top. That paper is going to have a few props. The first one being component. So it's going to take a form of a form in this case. So a paper is going to be a form, in this case, our search bar. It's also going to have an onSubmit property, which we're going to leave as an empty callback function for now. And it's also going to have an SX property. Remember, SX is for styles. It's going to have a border radius of 20. Now let's see if we can see the changes already. If we add some text in here, like test, we should be able to see it right there, and we can. It's also going to have a border of 1 pixel solid, and then we can use E3, E3, E3. It's barely visible, but it is there. We can also add a padding left equal to 2, and as you can see with SX properties, we can sometimes shorten these, such as PL for padding left. Box shadow is going to be set to none. And then we want to have a margin right only on small devices set to 5. And this is phenomenal. We can provide specific styles for specific devices. With that said, inside of our paper, we can have an input tag. And that input is also going to have a few properties. The first one being a class name of search-bar. Then we can give it a placeholder that's going to say something like search ... We can also give it a value, which at the start is going to be set to an empty string. And we can give it an onChange property, which at the start is going to be set to an empty callback function. Of course, we're going to implement all of these really soon. And below our input, we can add an icon button component. And an icon button component does exactly what it says. It is a button for an icon. So we're going to give it a search icon inside of there. Of course, let's apply some styling. So it's going to be of a type is equal to submit. It's going to have an SX property where padding P is 10 pixels and also color is set to red. So let's do color of red. And it looks like I used the wrong import right here. Instead of search icon, it was supposed to be just search from MUI icons material. So we can rename this to search right here. And immediately we can see a beautiful search icon appear right here, and it is actually a button. That is going to be it for our search bar, and with that, our navbar, at least for now, because soon enough we're going to come back in here and we're going to make this search work. Of course, we cannot do that yet as we're not fetching any videos. But we will fetch some videos soon because we're going to need them for our next component, which is the feed. And the feed is also one of the most important components of our application. So let's dive right in. Our feed is going to be consisted of two primary parts, the sidebar on the left side, and then the video feed on the right side. So let's get started. We can first import the use state and the use effect hooks from React. We can also import a couple of components such as box, stack, and typography coming from add_MUI/material. Now we can turn this div into a stack, which is going to be our primary wrapper, and it's going to wrap the sidebar and the main part. We can give it an SX prop of flex direction. There, we can open up a new object and say usually, meaning just SX, the prop is going to be set to column. And then on medium devices and larger, the flex direction property is going to be set to row. That is going to allow us to achieve a look that looks like this. We have rows on devices that are medium or higher, meaning laptops, tablets, or desktops. And then on mobile view, it's going to look something like this. Everything is going to be in one column. Now let's collapse this back right here, and let's continue implementing our feed. Inside of the stack, we're going to have a box, and that box is going to have an SX property of height. That height is going to also be dynamic, so usually it's going to be set to auto, and then on medium devices and higher, it's going to be set to 92 VH, meaning 92 vertical height. So now you can see that everything is going to turn dark. We can also give it one more prop, which is going to be, if we can find the end of the height here, that's going to be border right. And that border right is going to have 1 pixel, solid, and then 3D, 3D, 3D. That's a great color. Finally, we also want to give it some padding, so we can say px for padding horizontal. Usually, it's going to be set to 0. And then on medium devices and higher, so MD, that's going to be 2. There we go. So now we can see just a bit of padding and a really tiny gray border. Inside of there, we want to render our sidebar. So for now, we can write it like this, and then soon enough, we're going to turn it into a real sidebar component. And while we're here, let's also add our typography. Now, typography is just a simple component that is used for all text elements instead of p tags and headings. You can check out the demo right here and notice that if you scroll down, you just have nice headings or subtitles and body elements. With that said, let's write something in there, such as copyright 2022, and I'm going to call it JSM Media. Feel free to use any name you'd want here. Let's also give it a class name equal to copyright, and let's give it a variant, and that's going to be body2. If we save this, we cannot yet see it because we have to provide the SX prop, give it a margin top of 1.5 to divide it a bit, and then we can also give it a color equal to #FFF. That is white in hexadecimal. And there we go. We can see it right there. Of course, this is going to go on the bottom below our actual sidebar, which brings us to our next step. We can now create a new component called sidebar.jsx, again run rafce, and then export that sidebar from our index.js from within components. So let's simply say sidebar. And now back in our feed, we can now turn this into a functional component, hold Control or Command and press space, and automatically import it from /sidebar. Now we can control click the sidebar to go into that component and start implementing it right away. Just to see if it works, if we hover here, we can see the sidebar, which is exactly what it says right there. Now to implement our sidebar, we can import the stack component one more time from add_mui/material. And inside of this file, we're going to also import the categories coming from /utils/constants. And if you remember, that is that file that contains an array of all the categories alongside their names and the icons. So what we can do now is turn this into an instant return, just so we have some more space. And we can again use a stack component. The direction of that stack is going to be set to row, but then we can give it an SX prop and give it an overflow Y, which is going to be set to auto. We can also give it a height prop. Usually it's going to be set to auto, and then on medium devices, it's going to be set to 95%. And we can also give it a flex direction. And on medium devices and higher, it's going to be set to column because we want to show it like this. But keep in mind, if we go to mobile and go to something like iPhone 12 Pro, then you can see it's going to appear right here in a row. So again, we're making everything responsive right off the bat. Now inside of there, we have to map over our categories. So we can say categories.map, we get each individual category, and we want to instantly return something. Keep in mind, when you're returning instantly, you want to have a parenthesis right here instead of a curly brace. For each category, we want to return just a regular button. That button is going to have two span elements. The first span element is going to render the category.icon, and then the second span element is going to render the category.name. Now, if we save this, there we go. We can immediately see that's about 10 or 12 buttons that have the icons as well as the text. But now let's style them a bit. We can give this button right here a class name that is going to be equal to category-btn. That's automatically going to update it. And now if we hover over it, you can see that we can see something, but still it appears as if all the buttons are gone. So what we can do is we can give each one an inline style and say background is going to be dynamic. We have to figure out which category is currently clicked. So for now, let's just imagine that the new category is clicked. So I'm going to add a variable at the top, const selected category is equal to new, written like this with capital N. So now we can say if category.name is triple equal to selected category, then and meaning then have the color to be FC1503. Now if we save this, you're going to notice that that's going to be this red color right here, only if it is currently selected. Then we also want to give it a color, and the color is going to be set to white. So now we have all of these buttons right here, but this one is selected red. We can also give it a key, which is going to be equal to category.name, because whenever we're mapping over something in React, we have to give each property a key. Now you can notice that it's not quite like what we have on here. These are of a different color and there's a bit of space right there. So let's implement that right away by styling those spans. Our first span is going to have a style equal to color, and we want to make that dynamic as well. So if category dot name is triple equal to selected category, in that case, we want to make it white. Otherwise, we want to make it red. Now, if we save this, okay, it instantly changes color. And we also want to give it a margin right of 15 pixels. Now, if we save this, it's already looking so much better. Now, let's also style the category name. So let's give it a style, and we want to give it an opacity. So we can say if category.name is triple equal to selected category, then we want to set the opacity to 1. Otherwise, we want to set it to 0.8 to make it just a bit grayer. It's just a bit grayed out, as you can see right there. Great. So now we cannot yet shift between those because the new is selected statically right there, but soon enough, we'll be able to switch those categories and get real videos based on what we select. With that said, we're done with our sidebar, at least for now, and we can get back to our feed. Inside of our feed, as you can see right there, we have to have this title saying which category are we currently viewing, and then we have to show all of our videos. So let's focus on that right away. We can go below our sidebar, below our typography, and below our box, and then we can create a new box, which is going to be for our videos. Inside of there, we can create a new typography property, and that typography is going to say span. That span is going to say videos, and we can give it some styles. So we can say style, color is that same red color, FC1503. Make sure to put a hash at the start because this is a hexadecimal value. And then we want to render a word that is going to say which videos are we watching. JS Mastery videos, coding videos, new videos, or something else. So for now, let's simply hard code this in as new. There we go. Right now, that's not looking good. So let's apply some styles. Let's give it a variant equal to H4 to make it bigger. Let's also give it a font weight equal to bold. Let's give it a margin bottom of 2 to divide it a bit from the videos, which we're going to see soon. And then let's change the color by saying SX color is white. There we go. New videos. Now let's also apply some styles to this box. For example, P-2 to divide it a bit from the sidebar. Let's also give it an SX prop of overflow. Y is set to auto. Height is going to be set to 90 VH. And then finally, flex is going to be set to 2. This is going to make it take more space than the sidebar. Now let's save this. And now we are ready to start adding the videos right below this typography. So what we can do is go below the typography and create a new self-closing component called videos. Of course, let's go ahead and add it to our components folder, videos.jsx. We can immediately type RAFCE in there, go to our index, and then export it. Export default as videos from videos. There we go. So now if we go back to videos, it's saying just the videos, and we of course have to go back to feed to actually import it. So at the top, we can say import. That's going to be sidebar, and then a space, comma, videos, and all of that is coming from /components. And there we go. Now it looks like it automatically imported those in 2 different lines. But as we learned, we can import them in one line by saying import sidebar and videos from, in this case, just / because we're already in the components folder. Great. The next thing we're going to do is pass a videos prop into the actual videos. But right now, we cannot really pass anything. We can just pass an empty array because we don't yet have the access to those videos. So our next step is going to be to fetch the data to be able to show all of these videos. So we're going to scroll up and we're going to start implementing the API data fetching part. And of course, for data fetching, we'll be using RapidAPI. So the next part, we're going to learn how to fetch from all kinds of APIs within your React applications is coming right up. This is maybe the star of the show of this entire video, of course, besides creating this beautiful layout that we're looking at right now. So let's get started with API data fetching in React. To start fetching our great YouTube API data, we have to go to RapidAPI's hub. The link is going to be down in the description. There, you can first log in. You can log in using all of these social media platforms or just using your email. Once you log in, you can click the YouTube v3 link down in the description. That's going to lead you straight to the API that we'll be using throughout this video. Once you check this API out, instead of test endpoint, it's going to say subscribe right here. You can click that, which is going to bring you to the pricing section. But don't worry, you won't actually have to pay for it. You can just subscribe to the basic version, which is entirely free. And you get 500 requests a day, which is plenty. So once you subscribe, you can go back to endpoints. And right here, you're going to see your options. So for now, simply copy the entire options object because we're going to use it really soon. Once you copy that, you can go back inside of our application, and then let's create a new file inside of utils called fetch from API.js. This is going to be our utility function for fetching API data. We can first import Axios from Axios, and then we can simply paste our options object. Inside of here, we have all the headers that we need, but we have a couple of things that we maybe don't need, such as we don't have to specify this is a GET request because we're going to do that using Axios. Then the URL, we can put in a special variable. So let's call it something like base_URL, and then we can declare it right here. Const base_URL is equal to, and then we can take that same string that we just copied. There we go. Now, besides that, we don't have to pass any params, at least not yet. So besides the max results is 50, this is going to be all that we need. Now, you're going to notice that we also have the xRapidAPI key and then xRapidAPI host. We can leave the host as it is, but when it comes to the key, we'll have to safely store it in our environment variables. So let's copy this entire key. Instead of the key, let's say process.env.react_app_rapid_API_key. And now we can go back inside of our file tree, and then right in the root of our folder, we can create a new file called .env. Inside of there, we can paste our key, but we can also copy this name and then say React app rapid API key is equal to this key right there. Of course, use your own key, which you're going to get in this options object. With that said, we now need to rerun our application for the changes to take effect. So let's simply press Ctrl+C, Y, and then we can run npm start. There we go, our app reloaded on localhost 3000, and we are ready to put this options object to use. So let's say export const fetch from API is equal to an async function, like this. That function is going to accept just one parameter, which is going to be a URL. Now, what we can do is say await axios.get, and we want to call a template string that looks like this, and to it, we're going to pass the base URL. So whatever request we make, we always want it to start with the base URL. That's why we extracted it in a new string right there, and we don't have to pass it right here as the URL to the options object. With that said, we want to add something to that URL, and that is going to be the URL string, which we're getting as a param. That's going to allow us to call / base URL and then / something like get channel, or we can change that to get videos. We're going to make this incredibly dynamic, and we're going to utilize a lot of different endpoints from this API, such as search, suggested videos, video details, channel details, and much more. With that said, let's try to finalize this. So what we can do is also pass the options object as the second and the last parameter into our Axios.get function. Then we have to get the response. So we can say const response is equal to await Axios.get and then the call to that URL. Now we can immediately destructure the data that we get back from that request. And the only thing this function will do is it will return .data. And we can then call it from within our components. This is it. This is the function that allows us to call this API, pass some dynamic URL, and then call it from within any component in our application. We can immediately try it out by going back to our components and then back to our feed component. Inside of this feed component, we can import fetch from API, and that will be coming from /utils / fetch from API. Great. So how do we make use of this function? Well, with a use effect. We want to call fetch from API as soon as our feed loads because we want to immediately fetch the data. So let's create a new use effect right here. Use effect is a lifecycle hook, which gets called when the component initially loads. We also have to provide a dependency array, and for now, we're going to leave it empty, meaning that the code inside of this function will only run when we reload the page. Now, from inside of there, we want to call the fetch from API function, which we created. And we want to pass something to it. We want to pass the remainder of the URL that we want to call. So it's going to be YouTube v31 RapidAPI /. In this case, we don't want to provide the / search in the URL because we're going to add that to that URL. We just want to have a base URL right there. Now we can say search and then question mark part is equal to snippet, and we can say Q as in query is equal to selected category, like this. And of course we have to make this dynamic so we can turn it into a template string. This is going to go hand in hand with what we are just about to implement to our sidebar. Once we select a specific category, we want to update it, and then we want to fetch the videos for that specific category. So let's fix this error right here by defining a new use state field. So let's start typing use state. We can use this function that's going to create it instantly, and we can say selected category, set selected category, and then at the start, it's going to be set to new with a capital letter N. There we go. Now it looks like I missed an S right there. That's supposed to be utils. And now we can see our application again. Since we're using this variable right here inside of the use effect, we also have to provide it inside of this dependency array. That means that it's going to recall this function whenever we change a category. So how can we actually change this category so that instead of new, it says JS Mastery videos right here, or coding or React.js? Well, we can do that by passing the necessary states into our sidebar. So we can expand this, and we can pass the selected category, which is equal to selected category state, and then also set selected category, which is equal to set selected category. Now back inside of our sidebar, remember I told you we're going to go back in here. We can now accept the selected category as well as set selected category right here. And that's coming through props as we're calling this component. we no longer have to use this static variable. So let's remove that. But now, of course, let's implement the logic to update that category. So what we can do is make use of this function, and that's going to happen once we click on any one of these buttons. So let's simply add an onClick property right here below the class name. OnClick, we're going to have a callback function, and we simply want to set selected category to be equal to category.name. That is it. Now, if we keep changing things, you're going to notice that the highlight of the button actually changes, but it still says new right here. To fix that, we can go back into feed, and we can see that right here, new is hard-coded. So instead of new, let's render the selected category. And there we go. Now it's going to say coding videos, JS mastery videos, Next.js videos, and that works. Now, based on that, we can make different calls to our fetch from API function. The only thing we have to do to extract the data is to attach a .then function. .then is going to be executed once we actually call this function, and once it returns us a promise that's going to result to a successful return. And then we have to add a .then function to it. .then is going to be a result of a promise. So this right here is an asynchronous function. So we cannot simply say const data is equal to and then a call of that function, because it returns a promise. With asynchronous functions, we have to chain a .then to it. So to be able to get the data, we immediately get it right here as the first parameter of the .then, and the only thing we have to do is set it to the state of videos. So we can create a new state, const videos, set videos, and at the start, that's going to be set to an empty array. Now that we have the state, we can simply call the set videos state setter, and we can say that's equal to, in this case, it's simply going to be data.items. There we go. Now, how can we be sure that we are actually getting back the videos? Well, remember where we were. We were just at the point that we're going to send the videos over to the videos component. So instead of sending an empty array, let's now send the real videos. So let's go back into the videos component, and now we can actually console.log to see what we're passing. So let's console log the videos, and those videos will be coming from, of course, props. So we can destructure props right there and then get the videos. Let's open up our inspect element, open up the console as well, expand it just a bit, and open up the info tab. As you can see, we successfully get back an array with 50 different elements. And if we can guess it correctly, those 50 pieces of data represent YouTube videos. So this is working perfectly. Not only that, if we now switch to a different category right here, you can notice that we're going to get another 50. There we go. Every time that we call, we're going to get new 50 results. Perfect. So now we have to figure out what is hiding in those 50 elements, how does each one of these objects look like, and then we can create a video card that looks just like this. So now that we're properly fetching the videos, let's start by creating the layout of the feed component. We can do that by closing this. We can remove this console log, and we can literally dive into just creating our layout. Inside of our videos, we can first import a couple of components from Material UI. Let's first import the stack component, which we've already used a couple of times so far, and let's also import the box component, which we have also used. Now, instead of this div, we're going to render a stack component, and let's give that stack a direction. That's going to be set to row. Let's also give it a flex wrap property equal to wrap, and then justify content, which is going to be equal to start. We can also give it a gap is equal to 2. Now inside of there, we can map through all of our videos. So let's say videos dot map, we get each individual item, and then we're going to also get an index. Now for each one of these indices, or videos in this case, we want to render a box element. That box is going to have a key equal to IDX as an index, and we want to render a video card. But there are going to be two different types of videos that we're getting. One is not going to be a video at all. So what am I even saying? Well, if we search for JavaScript Mastery, or if we click JS Mastery right here, you're going to notice that we get back a profile alongside all of these videos. So this is not a video, but it's rather a channel consisted of different videos that they post there. So what we need to do is we need to take into consideration, are we going to show the profile or are we going to show the video? And we can do that by checking what data does it return. So we can start by rendering the video. If the item has an ID and then the ID points to the video ID, that means that it is a video. So we can say and then we want to render a video card component, a self-closing video card. And we also want to pass a video prop to it, which is going to be equal to item. Let's expand this to be able to see it better. There we go. So if we have the item.id.videoID, then it must be a video card. Now let's duplicate this. If we have the item.id dot, and then if we have the channel ID right there, then we want to render a different component called channel card. And instead of passing the video, we're going to pass in the channel detail. There we go. So hopefully this makes sense. We are immediately taking into consideration what our API returns and what we're going to present on the screen. Now let's create those two components. Let's create a new component called video card.jsx. We can run RAFCE inside of there. And let's create another one called channel card.jsx. Run RAFCE again. We can export both of these components from the index. The first one is going to be video card, and the second one is going to be channel card. There we go. And now if we go back to our videos, we can now import both of these components. So that's going to be import video card coming from just /, because we're already inside of the components folder. And then we can also add the channel card right here coming from /. We no longer have any errors, but now if we expand this properly, we are rendering these cards. And now hopefully we should be able to see something right there. And would you look at that? We have a lot of different video cards, but it seems like we cannot see a channel card so far. If we go into this channel card, it should be saying channel card. Maybe you can see it, but I am definitely missing it right here. I can only see the videos. Oh, that's right. That's because we're in the home page. But if we now switch to JS Mastery, for example, you can see that the first one on the list is indeed a channel card and all the other ones are video cards. Perfect. Now, what we can do next, just to be able to see something, is we can comment out the channel card and we can focus on the video card first by moving into the video card component. Now, this is almost going to be the main star of our show because our feed is consisted of many different video cards that look just like this. So our next step is going to be to implement the look and feel of our feed by creating the video card component. Let's get started. To start implementing our video card, let's first import the link component coming from React Router DOM, because once we click on that card, we'll actually have to navigate to the video detail of that card. We also want to import a couple of components from MUI. That's going to be typography. We're going to also need a card, a card content, and a card media for that great video thumbnail. All of these are coming from add_MUI/material. We also want to import the check circle, which is going to be coming from add_MUI/icons-material. Now that we have all of those, we also want to import some demo data. So let's import demo thumbnail URL, and that's going to be coming from /utils/constants. Alongside the demo thumbnail URL, we also want to get the demo video URL, the demo video title. We also can get the demo channel URL, and finally the demo channel title. This is going to be used in case we cannot fetch the proper data for some of the videos that we'll receive. Then we just simply want to show some demo data to be able to still kind of check out the rest, but we're going to mask the fact that we're missing some other data as well. Great. With that said, we know that we're passing a prop called video into this component, and we can immediately start exploring it a bit by simply console logging the video component to see what we're getting from it. So let's open up the inspect element. Let's go to the console, to the info tab, and you can see that we get back an object. Now, this object is going to have the ID property, and inside of that ID, we have the video ID, which is what we're concerned with. And then we have the snippet property. So let's immediately destructure those properties from the video. So let's only take the ID, and then we can one more time destructure the video ID coming from that ID with this specific syntax. What we can do next is we can also destructure the syntax. So let's go into the video, and then right here after the ending curly brace, we want to destructure the snippet. So now if we console log the video ID and if we console log the snippet, we're going to immediately get those values. There we go. We have the video ID, and then the snippet contains a lot of different data that we can use to show that right here. So let's focus on actually rendering that card. We can remove those console logs, and we can remove this window right there. We're going to render a card in this case. And inside of that card, we're immediately going to have a link component. And that link is going to wrap the card media component. That card media is going to be a self-closing tag, which is going to have an image property. And then inside of there, we want to go into the snippet, $thumbnails, $hi, $URL. I'm not sure how this card got there. So once again, it is snippet.thumbnails.hi.card. Make sure to put these question marks before every dot, because that way we're not going to get any errors. It's just going to be undefined. Now, if we do that, we can immediately get some errors at least, but that's fine. And if we now go to errors, you can notice that sometimes we're getting some undefineds, it looks like. The above error occurred in the link component. Okay, so our link definitely needs a to property. So we can say to, and that's going to be equal to, if video ID exists, then we want to go to /video/ and then video ID. If it doesn't exist, then we want to go to demo video URL. There we go. Do we have that right there? Well, it looks like we do, but I misspelled it. So now if we save that, we still cannot see those images, but that's because we have to apply some styles to that card media tag. So let's put this into a couple of rows, expand this just a bit, and now our card media is going to have an image property, but it's also going to have an alt property. So we can say alt is equal to, that is going to be snippet $title, and then most importantly, we can give it an SX property where we can give it a width equal to 358 pixels and then height is going to be equal to 180 pixels. And if we save that, we should be able to get all of these thumbnails for these videos. That is great. If we switch to JS Mastery, you can see our great thumbnails as well. We're working on a lot of different project-based courses, such as building e-commerce stores, dashboard, TikTok clones, or fitness and gym applications. With that said, we're now showing our card media, but now we're going to move to the actual card content, which is the title and then the channel that posted that video. Below our link containing the card media, we can create the card content. That is another Material UI component. That card content is going to have an SX property of background color, and that's going to be equal to hash 1E, 1E, 1E. And we're also going to have a height equal to 106 pixels. There we go. So now if we close this properly and save it, we can see that this looks a bit more like a card. Now we can properly open up this tag, and then inside of there, we're going to have one more link. This link is going to be almost the same as the initial one, so we can simply copy this link pointing to the video ID, and we can close it right there. Inside of this link, we're going to have a typography. So let's create a new typography. And this typography is going to render the snippet !title and then .slice from 0 to 60 characters, because some titles are going to be a bit too long. So now we can see this dark text right there. If the title doesn't exist, we can render the demo video title and then say .slice from 0 to 60 as well. There we go. Now let's make this a bit bigger by giving it a variant of subtitle 1. Let's also give it a font weight equal to bold, and finally color is equal to #FFF. And now we have a proper title. Now we can essentially duplicate this entire link and the typography down below, and instead of pointing to the video ID, we're going to point to the channel ID. So let's say if snippet !channel ID, if it exists, we're going to point to channel / and then that's going to be snippet !channel ID. There we go. Or we're going to render the demo channel URL. There we go. And of course, now we don't want to simply render the title 2 times. For the second time, instead of the video title, we want to render the channel title. So we can say snippet.channel title, or that's going to be demo channel title. There we go, JavaScript mastery right there. But in this case, we want to also give it a variant of subtitle 2 to make it a bit smaller, and also set a color to gray to make it a bit less pronounced. And let's also give it an icon by saying check circle. And then we want to give it an SX prop, which is going to be font size is equal to 12. Color is going to be set to gray. And then finally, margin left is going to be set to 5. In this case, we'll have to render this as 5 pixels. If we save that, this is now looking more like it, but the card definitely expands a bit more than it should. So let's apply some class names to our wrapper card component. We can give it an SX property equal to width. Now we can open that as a new dynamic object. Inside of there, on medium devices, it can have 320 pixels of width, but on extra small devices, it can have 100% of the width. Now, if we save this, this is going to look more like it because we can see 2 cards per row now. And also, we want to give it another property of box shadow is going to be set to none, as well as border radius is going to be set to none as well. There we go. So now we have these great looking cards. And it looks like the border radius remained a bit right here. So instead of none, let's change it to 0. There we go. So now we have a proper card right there. Now let's expand this and just enjoy a bit to see how great this is looking. As you can see, we have different cards right there, and our videos are rendering. All of these are from JS Mastery, but since we already implemented the data fetching logic, we can now switch to coding. We can switch to Next.js, for example, as well as music, education, podcast, movies, and more. So this is working perfectly. Now, it just looks like this first card has some space right there. So we have to check what that empty space is for. And I think that is going to be because there is a channel card appearing right there. So let's go ahead and focus on that channel card right away. We can do that by going to our videos. Let's expand this just a bit so we can see 2 per row. And let's uncomment this channel card. Now, if we go to the channel card, you can see that the text is right there. But of course, let's go ahead and actually implement it so that we show this great looking profile picture. To start with our channel card, we can first import a couple of components from MUI. These being the box. We're also going to get card content, card media, typography, and all of that is coming from @MUI/material. We're also going to import the check circle, which is an icon, coming from, that's going to be @MUI/icons material. We also need to get the link component coming from React Router DOM, and we're also going to get the demo profile picture, and that is coming from data/utils/constants. Now, keep in mind, we're passing from our videos the channel detail to our channel card component. So right here through props, we can get our channel detail. For each channel, let's automatically return, and that's going to be a box element. So instead of a div, we want to return a box right here. That box is going to have quite a few styles. So let's create a new SX property to properly style it. It's going to have a box shadow equal to none. It's also going to have a border radius equal to 20 pixels. So let's do 20. Now, if we save this, we cannot yet see anything, but bear with me, we'll have to add something inside of it to actually be able to style it. So let's start immediately by wrapping everything inside of our box with a link component, because when somebody clicks right there, we want to link to that channel. So that link is going to have a to property, to dynamic /channel /channel detail !ID !channel ID. Inside of there, we want to render a card content. That card content is going to have an SX property equal to display is set to flex, flex direction is set to column, justify content is set to center, text align is set to center as well, and then color is going to be set to #FFF. There we go. Now we are ready to add the card media. So if we go back, we should finally be able to see something right here. So let's add that card media. It's going to be a self-closing component, and we can give it an image property equal to channel detail, !snippet, !thumbnails, !high, and then !URL. That is where our URL is hidden. And in case we cannot fetch the profile photo, we can also say or demo profile photo, or in this case, it's going to be picture. Now, if we save it, it's not going to show up yet because we have to give it some styles. So let's first set the alt tag to be equal to channel detail question mark dot snippet, question mark dot title. And finally, for the styles, we can give it an SX property that's going to be set to border radius of 50%, which makes it a circle. We can give it a height equal to 180 pixels, as well as width equal to 180 pixels. If we now save this, you should finally be able to see this image. Again, make sure you're on the JS Mastery because this is the search term for the actual channel. If you are new, there's no YouTube channels to show, but here there is a specific one which matches this search term. With that said, let's also give it a margin bottom of 2. So that's just going to be MB is equal to 2. And let's also give it a border of 1 pixel solid. And then we can do a grayish color like E3, E3, E3. There we go. Finally, below the card media, we can render a typography. That typography is going to have a variant equal to H6. And then inside of there, we can render a channel detail question mark dot snippet question mark dot title. Now, if we save this, we can see JavaScript Mastery right there. And we can also render that icon, which is right here inside of the typography. We can even copy that from the video card. That is going to be the check circle icon. So let's copy it and let's paste it right here below the title. There we go. Let's make it a bit bigger by setting the font size to 14, and then everything else can remain as it was. There we go. Now we're going to make this component dynamic, which means that later on we're going to use it on the profile page as well, reusing that same component. That is great. Now, unfortunately, right now we're not getting the amount of subscribers that the channel has, but on the profile page we will be getting it. So let's just make our component future-proof by immediately specifying that detail. Below this typography, we want to check if channel detail question mark dot statistics, which is something you only get on the profile page, dot subscriber count. So only if that exists, we want to render another typography component. That component is going to say parse int, so parse an integer, and then we're going to pass the channel detail question mark dot statistics question mark dot subscriber count, and we want to say dot to locale string. So this is going to give us a human readable number, something like 379,000. Usually it would just be a number string. And what we can say is subscribers. Again, this is not something that's going to show up here because we don't have access to this statistics object, but we will have it later on once we call it from the channel page. With that said, if we now expand this, we can see that it is almost looking good, but it is just not aligning properly. It's still just a bit far off from what we have right there. If we expand this, you can see that it fits nicely right there. So let's try to see where is the difference. We can see that it's taking less space right here. So that's most likely going to be our box. So let's properly style our box component by applying a couple more styles. Let's give it a display is equal to flex, a justify content is equal to center, as well as align items is equal to center. Let's give it a width that's going to be dynamic. On extra small devices, it's going to be 356 pixels. But of course, make sure to put that in a string and say pixels. Otherwise, it's going to be on medium devices, 320 pixels. As soon as we change this, it did get more width and it's looking closer to what we have on the final design. Finally, let's also specify the height, which is going to be set to 326 pixels. Finally, we can give it a margin set to auto. Now, if we save this, you can see it is almost exactly the same. And now if we expand this, There we go. Our feed is looking perfect. We have our new page where we only have the thumbnails of all the videos, and then we can switch between all of these different channels to check out different technologies, music, education, sport, and a lot more. If you go to a category that has a channel included, we can also see that channel right there. Now that we have the video cards and as well as the channel card done, we are ready to move on to the channel page, which looks like this, where we list all of the videos from that specific channel, or we can move to the video detail page where we can actually play that video and get all videos related to that video. Isn't that exciting? So in this case, let's go ahead and build the profile page first. That's going to be once we click on this link, we're going to be re-navigated to /channel / the ID of that channel, and let's get ready to implement that. I'm going to collapse this right here. And now we can close all of the currently open files because we do have quite a few open, and we want to move to the channel detail component. So that's inside of the app, channel detail, you can control click it, and we are ready to start developing it. To start coding out our great channel detail page, we of course first have to import a couple of things. Let's get the use state and use effect hooks. Let's also get the use params. So we can say import use params coming from React Router DOM. Let's also import the box component coming from, you know it, MUI material. And now comes the best part. We're also going to import the videos component as well as the channel card component coming from /. These are the components that we have already created, and I'm going to teach you how to make them reusable. This means that the channel detail component will be incredibly simple to develop, keeping in mind that we'll just reuse the components that we have created before. Of course, we'll have to make some minor adjustments, but overall, the fact that we created reusable components is going to pay off handsomely. So let's start by first wrapping everything in a box. And now keep in mind you can come to the profile detail page by going to JS Mastery and then clicking the profile right there. Now you can notice that we are on /channel /channel ID. So how do we get access to that ID from inside of our code? Well, that's exactly what we use the use params for. So we can say const destructure the ID, and that is equal to use params. Now, if we try printing that out right here, we can render the ID. Right now it is hidden right there, but you do see that we got back an ID. That's all that we needed. Now, based off of that ID, we can create a new use effect hook. That's going to render as soon as our component opens. That use effect is going to re-render whenever the ID changes, so we can pass the ID into the dependency array. And there, we can make two different function calls. We're first going to call our fetch from API function. Again, make sure to import it at the top. Import fetch from API from /utils / fetch from API. We can call it, but this time we're going to provide a different URL to it. So let's say channels part is equal to snippet and ID is equal to ID, like so. Now we can say then we want to get the data, and then the only thing we want to do is we want to set the channel detail page. So let's create a use state for that. Use state. That's going to be channel detail. Set channel detail, and at the start, it's going to be set to null. Now we can say set channel detail. It's going to be equal to data items, and then the first channel in the list, like that. Now we have access to all of the channel details, and we can even go ahead and console log them. So console log channel detail. If we now open inspect element and then the console, we can go to our info tab and we do see an object containing all channel details, including the statistics that we talked about earlier: subscriber count, video count, and the total view count. Now, we want to fetch something else as well. If you think about it, we need to fetch the videos belonging to that channel. So let's simply copy this entire fetch from API function. And again, this is another thing that we made entirely reusable. We can recall this function and just change the part of the URL to get different data. So instead of channel, we want to set the search question mark, and then we want to get the channel ID is equal to, and then we pass in the ID. Then you want to say and part is equal to snippet right there. I had a mistake, so it's just part is equal to snippet. And then it looks like I have the double ID here, which we don't really need. The only thing we do need is and order is going to be set to date. So now it's going to even order it. Then we get back the videos inside of the data, but now we're not going to set them into the channel detail. What we are going to do is create a new use state called videos and set videos. And at the start, we can set them to be an empty array. Now, instead of setting the channel detail, we can delete that part and say set videos, which is equal to data question mark dot items. There we go. Now, alongside the channel detail, let's console log the videos. Now, if we go back, we can see that we get back undefined for some reason. Interesting. Let's check our query. We have a question mark where we set the channel ID, and that's going to be equal to ID, and part is equal to snippet, and then and order is equal to data. So this is looking good to me. I noticed a small typo. Instead of order is equal to data, it should have been order is equal to date. Now, if we save that and go back, we do get back all the 50 videos related to our channel. Great. So now we know that data is coming back and we're storing it in the state. Now, you might have noticed that we've had a lot of issues actually fetching this data. And that's because we had small typos and errors here and there. And thankfully, we solved this in a couple of minutes, but errors like these can take hours or even days to fix. That's why there is the RapidAPI extension, which allows you to test your APIs. Let me show you how we could have avoided all of the errors we've had previously. You just have to click RapidAPI here, go to the project selection, and then create a new project. In this case, we can keep it local, and the name is going to be YouTube. We can copy the URL we want to call straight from here. So in this case, let's do search as we were doing it, and let's go ahead and copy the URL right here. Now you can paste it right here under the get request, and we can also add the query parameters right here as key and value pairs. So by looking at the docs, we know that we need to pass a couple of params such as a queue, which is a query, and then a part, region code, results, and so on. But we can also see that the only required ones are query and then part. All the other ones are optional. So let's go ahead and pass those parameters. Right here, let's say part is going to be equal to snippet. And let's also pass the order by date. There we go. And finally, we also have to provide our API headers. And finally, we'll also have to pass our auth headers. So let's go back to our RapidAPI. We can see right here that we have the X RapidAPI key and then the host. So let's go ahead and copy the name and then the value. And finally, we have the host right there. So we can also copy and paste the value. There we go. Now we have everything we need to start playing with the data that we're getting back from the API. In this case, since we're working with a search, let's try to pass a queue, as in query. And in this case, let's try to search for React.js. We have the query, we have the headers. Let's just change the name right here to YouTube API search. And let's click send. As you can see, we got 200 OK. And if you collapse this, you can see that we get a JSON text and we get a couple of different items. All of these are video IDs and containing the video snippet data. And in here, you can check the data raw, JSON text, JSON tree even, so you can see it in this format. And what we can also do is do some filtering. So let's try to go into items and then snippet and then title. So that's going to be $items.snippet, or we have to do 0 on the items, .snippet, and then .title. Now, if we search for it, you can see the title of the first video we got, and we can keep changing this for all other videos. This is great. Now we can keep changing the query, changing the part, changing the headers, and make sure that your API request is all right. Once you make sure that everything is great, we can generate a new call right from inside of our Visual Studio Code by clicking this code button right here. You can see it creates the response, it has the headers, it has the response OK, and it just gives you back the data. But that's what we've done before, so we don't have to repeat that. With that said, I just showed you the way in which you can save all the trouble that we've had before by not using this extension. So always make sure to test your APIs. Now let's go back to the development. Finally, let's render it out. As I've said, that's going to be the easy part. What we can do is wrap everything with a box. That box is going to have a min height equal to 95 VH. That's going to make it take the entire screen. Now we also want to wrap it with one more box, and that box is going to contain a self-closing div. This is the div that's going to serve the purpose of this gradient right there. To create that gradient, you can go to cssgradient.io. You can mess with the colors a bit, and then you can copy this line right there. That's the only thing we need. So let's say style is equal to, and you can then paste that line, but just make sure that you wrap everything in a string because we are writing CSS in JS right there. Let's also give it a z index of 10 to appear above our profile image, and let's give it a height of 300 pixels. Now, if we save this and go back, you can see that we have this beautiful CSS gradient. Now, below that, we want to render the channel card. To that channel card, we can provide the channel detail is equal to, and that's going to be channel detail. If we save that, you're going to see that something doesn't work. And that's because we put it right here before the self-closing div. We have to put it below. If we do that, we have our beautiful profile page. And with just one line of code, we reuse this card that we previously used in our feed. Isn't that great? And now we even have the subscribers right there. But there's just one small difference we want to make. If you check out this page, you can notice that it is shifted a bit above, so it appears over the CSS gradient, and here it doesn't. To achieve that look, what we have to do is go into the channel card, and then we have to give it some negative margin top. To do that, we can simply say margin top is equal to, and then let's do minus 93 pixels. If we save that, you can notice that it instantly shifts up and it looks great. But of course, now we have the issue where right here, it also shifts up. So how are we going to make this component reusable in all instances? And this right here is something that you're going to learn right now in this video, and you'll be able to use it with all your other reusable components. Whenever components have similar things, like right here and right there, there's an image, there's a title, that's it. Then you can write everything inside of the component. But if something is different, for example, that margin, then you can pass that part through props. So right here, when calling the channel card, we can pass the margin top property equal to minus 93 pixels. And now we can go inside of that channel card, we can get that prop of margin top, and we can say margin top is equal to margin top. Or just for short, you can omit the latter. Now, this means that it's only going to be used when you actually pass that prop. When calling this component from our grid, or rather from our feed, should I say, we're not passing that prop. So that's being called from videos, if I'm not mistaken. You can see we're calling the channel card, we're not passing that prop. But now if we go back to our video detail, right here we are passing that prop. So if we go there, the styles actually work. And now that I'm looking at it, we can bump that up to 110. Great. So you just learned something. Create reusable components. Now we can go outside of that box. We can show one more box that's going to have a display is equal to flex and p-2 for padding. Inside of that box, we're going to have just one more box. That box is going to have an SX prop where we're going to update the margin right, but only on small devices and larger to 100 pixels. So 100 pixels of margin right is not going to be applied to extra small devices, only to small and higher. And inside of there, we can render our videos component, and we can pass in the videos is equal to videos. Now, this time, our videos are related to the videos belonging to this channel. Now, if we expand this, would you look at that? It's looking great, but it looks like it is missing those 100 pixels of margin right. So let's check what's up with that. Margin right on small devices, 100 pixels, and then we are rendering the videos. Well, the reason for that is that this box right here should be a self-closing tag appearing before the videos. The videos shouldn't be wrapped in it. So if we make that simple change like this and save that, you can now see that it all looks great. And with just a couple of lines of code, we have a custom profile page with the channel card component, this new gradient, and with the list of all of the channel related videos. Isn't that great? And check this out, we made that happen with about 10 lines of code because we used reusable components. Tricks like these are better explained in my JSMastery.pro courses. So if you want to learn React skills in depth, you can do that by checking out the Filmpire or the NFT Marketplace courses. There, I teach many tips just like this one on how to create these reusable components. With that said, we can go back to the home page. We are now done with the feed. We are done with the video cards. We're done with the channel detail card. And the last two things we have to implement are going to be the search. So right here, we can search for any kind of channels or videos, and they're going to be populated right here in the feed. And finally, the video detail page. So if you click on a video, it's going to show up right here. To start creating our search, we can collapse and close all the files besides the app. And then we can see that our search is reached by going to /search/ and then we have to enter the search term. There, we are rendering the search feed component. So let's control click it and go right inside of it. This component is going to be almost exactly the same as our regular feed. If you think about it, the only difference is going to be the data for the videos that we want to show. So what we can do is go back to app.js, go into the feed, and for now, let's simply Control A and then Control C to take the entire code of this file, copy it, go back into the search feed, and then paste it. This is going to be our starting point to implement the search feed. So let's first check out if we have all the imports that we need. We're going to use the use state and the use effect, And then we're going to use the box and also the typography. In this case, we won't be needing a stack. We need to fetch the data from API. And then in this case, we won't be needing the sidebar. The only thing we need are going to be the videos. So this entire thing regarding the sidebar, we can entirely delete. The only thing we need is this box right there. So let's copy this box with padding 2 containing the videos. And then let's remove this entire stack right there. Because once we search for something, we don't want to show the sidebar. We only want to show the actual videos. And if you think about it, the videos are right here where we're rendering the videos component. Now let's indent everything properly. There we go. And let's also remove the selected category state because we won't be needing it. And we can also remove the selected category from here and here because again, we don't need it in this case. We can rename this to search feed instead of simply feed. There we go. And the last thing we need to do is just figure out how can we fetch the data regarding our searched videos. So if we go to RapidAPI and look for search, that's almost exactly what we were already doing for the selected categories. The only thing we have to do is just pass the right query under Q right there. So let's do exactly that. We of course have to get our search term. So let's quickly fix this by removing that part. And let's also remove the selected category from here and say search results for, and then later on we'll be able to render the search term right here. So now the main question is, how can we get the search query that we are going for? Well, let's go to our deployed application and let's quickly see how it works. Let's search for build and deploy React.js and press enter. As you can notice, we have a couple of videos right there, but more importantly, we were re-navigated to /search / and then build and deploy React.js. That means that we should be pulling the data or the query from our parameters in the browser. So to do that, we can import something known as use params coming from React router DOM. And then we need to go into our app and see how did we call this parameter right there. We called it search term. So what we can do is say const search term is going to be equal to use params. And now that's going to get populated to whatever we enter in the URL bar after the /search. Once we actually get that search query, the only thing we need to do is pass it over right here to our API request and also to our use effect so that it gets updated every time we search for something. Everything else is going to be the same. We get the data, we pass over the videos, and then we say search results for, and then we can, inside of the span, say search term. So search results for search term, and then after the span, videos. There we go. Now to be able to test it out, we can now go back and let's try typing something. But of course, that's not yet going to work because we didn't implement the Navbar functionality. So let's close this up and let's go to our Navbar. Right here, we actually have to go one more step into the search bar, and this is the place where we're going to make this input work. What we have to do is create a new use state field right here at the top. So we can say use state. That's going to be search term, set search term, and at the start, it's going to be set to an empty string. Then we want to update that search term every time that we type something. So we get a key press event, and then we can say set search term is equal to e.target.value. That is where the value of a key press is stored in. And the value, of course, of that input is going to be search term. This is going to allow us to actually type something in. But now the question is, how do we pass that over to our URL, to our query? And we can do that by adding a handle submit function. So right here on submit, we want to call a handle submit function, which we are yet to create. So let's say const handle submit. That is going to be just a regular function that's going to accept an event. In that case, that's going to be a submit event. With every React application, you have to say e.prevent default, because when you submit a form, usually it reloads the page. In React.js, we don't want to do that. And since that is the default behavior of the browser, you have to say e.prevent default. Now we want to check if the search term exists, meaning if something has been typed in. And then if that is the case, we can use the useNavigate hook given to us by React Router DOM. We first have to initialize it by saying const navigate is equal to useNavigate. We call it as a function. And then inside of here, if we fix this typo, we can say navigate, and then we can pass a dynamic template string to /search /, and then we pass in the search term. Of course, at the end, we want to reset the search term to an empty string. So we're going to use this navigate to navigate us to that specific URL. Once we get re-navigated, then we go to this route. This search term gets populated. Inside of the search feed, we can read that search term. We can recall our API to give us the search videos. And then finally, we can render those videos out by using our already built-in videos component. Isn't that great? Now, let's actually test it out. I'm going to go back right here, and I'm going to search for something like, let's do build and deploy a chat application. Okay, search results for build and deploy a chat application videos, and there we go. We can see many different videos from many different channels. This is looking great. We can also search for terms that contain channels. So if we search for JavaScript Mastery, that's going to bring us our regular JavaScript Mastery video search, including even the link to the channel. We can collapse this, and we are ready to move to the final part of our application, which is being able to actually watch the videos that we're looking at right now. So to do that, we can close our search feed, and we can go to the route /video ID, and in our case, that is the video detail component. Let's start off by importing the use state as well as the use effect hooks coming from React. We can also import the link component and the use params hook coming from React-router-DOM. We can also import a React player coming from React-player. This is a dependency that we're going to use to showcase our video. Then we're going to import a typography, a box, and finally a stack coming from add-MUI/material. And finally, we're going to import that check circle, which is going to be coming from add-MUI/icons-material. And then when it comes to our local imports, we can import the video component coming from /. We can also import the fetch from API function from /utils / fetch from API. Great. With that, we have everything we need. So let's get started by creating the layout for our video detail component. Let's open up our finalized application, and let's open up one of the videos. It's going to look like this. We're going to have a big video on the left side. Then we're going to have a title and a channel name, the number of views and likes that the video received, and then you can scroll through all of these similar videos. So let's collapse that again, and let's get started. Well, first of all, we can focus on creating the layout, and then we're going to focus on pulling the actual video data. We can start by wrapping everything in a box. Now, if we save this and go to our current application and click on a video, for example, this one, you can notice that everything is just white. But if we give this box a min height equal to 95 VH, it's going to turn dark. Now we can have a stack component right inside of that box, and that stack, not stack, is going to have a direction property that is going to be dynamic. On extra small devices, it's going to be column, and then on medium devices and higher, it's going to be row. Inside of there, we can have one more box that's going to have a flex property set to 1. Now, inside of that box, we can have another box. This box is going to wrap our left side of the video, meaning the actual video, the title, channel name, views, and likes. This box is going to have an SX property equal to width is 100%, position is going to be set to sticky, and then the top property is going to be set to 86 pixels. Inside of that box, we can immediately render the React player. A React player is a self-closing component that accepts a URL. So since we already have to pass the URL to it, it might be the best idea to immediately fetch the data we need and then later on continue with the layout. So what we can do is first we need to get the ID of the video we want to fetch the data for. And we already learned how to do that. We just have to say const ID is equal to use params. And now we can use a use effect hook to immediately fetch the data as soon as our component loads. There we can pass the ID as well. The first thing we need to do is call our fetch from API function. There we can pass a dynamic URL, searching for videos, question mark, part is equal to snippet, comma, statistics, and then we need to pass the ID, so we can say and ID is equal to $ and curly braces, and then the ID. This is going to give us our video detail data. Then we can say .then, we get that data, and then we want to set that into a new state field. So let's create it. We can say use state. That's going to be equal to video detail, set video detail, and at the start, it's going to be set to null. Then we can say set video detail, and then we pass the data dot items and then 0, meaning only the first video. Great. So now we have the video detail data, and we can use that to render this React player. So we're going to pass a URL to it, which is going to be dynamic. We need to say https://www.youtube.com/watch V is equal to, and then we pass in the ID that we want to see. So now if we save this, and in here we have a video from Food Theory. Great. We can also pass in the class name equal to React-player. So now if you reload, you're going to see that it's going to get a bit bigger. And we can also give it a controls property. So now if you reload, and once you play it, you'll be able to actually navigate and control through the video. Great. Now below that React player, we can show a typography component. This typography is going to simply render the video title. But now the question is, where is the title coming from? Well, all of our data is contained inside of our video detail. So we can say video detail dot snippet and then dot title. If we save this and hover right here, there we go. We can see the title, but let's style this typography just a bit. That is going to be color is equal to #FFF. We also want to give it a variant is equal to H5 and font weight is equal to bold. Let's also give it a padding equal to 2. Now, if we save this, we can see the title. But just so we don't have to every time say video detail.snippet.title and then video detail.snippet.description, let's destructure all of the values from the video detail. We can do that by saying const. We can get the snippet is equal to video detail. This is called object destructuring. We took the snippet property out of the video detail. So now we can simply say snippet.detail and it's still going to work. But we can take this a step further. So we can do colon and then we can extract the title straight from the snippet. With this, we can simply specify the title right here and everything is still going to work. So while we're there, let's also destructure all of the other properties that we're going to use throughout this video. That's going to be channel ID and channel title. Now we're going to go outside of the snippet, but we can go into the statistics. And from there, we can take the view count as well as the like count. And that's going to be it. So now we can continue. Below our typography, we can render a stack component. This stack is going to have a direction equal to row. It's going to have a justify content equal to space between. We can also give it an SX property where we're going to set the color to be equal to #FFF. Let's also give it a padding Y equal to 1 and then padding X equal to 2. Inside of there, we want to show a link. There we go. And this link is going to point to, that's going to be /channel and then $$ curly braces channel ID. That's going to be typography. And inside of that typography, we can render the channel title. Now it looks like our app broke. So if I open up the inspect element and go to console, we can see that cannot read properties of null reading snippet. So it's possible that sometimes the snippet doesn't have all the necessary data. And the reason for that is that maybe the data hasn't loaded yet. So to fix that, let's add an if statement right here and say if no video detail (snippet), then return a string that's going to say loading. There we go. Now, if we save this and go back, we can successfully see our video. Great. Now let's continue styling our typography. It's going to have a variant equal to, it's going to be dynamic. On small sizes, it's going to be subtitle 1. And then on bigger sizes, medium or larger, it's going to be H6. And let's also give it a color equal to #FFF. And there we go. We have the channel name right there. We also want to render that channel icon. So that's going to be check circle. Let's give it an SX property of font size is equal to 12 pixels. Color is going to be equal to gray. And then margin left is going to be 5 pixels. If we save this, you can see it right there. So this is looking good. And now below this link, we can render the last thing on the left side of the video detail page. And that's going to be a stack. This stack is going to render 2 different typographies. So let's start with the first one. Typography. In this case, we can say variant is equal to body 1. And we can set the SX prop to opacity is 0.7 to make it just a bit less noticeable. In there, we can render, that's going to be view count and then views. Now, if we save that, we can see right here 98,552 views. Now, if we were talking about millions, it would be really hard to see what this number was. So there's a neat little trick that we can do. We can say parse int, pass in the view count, and then say .to locale string, and then call it as a function. This is going to add the necessary comma and dots, so this is more easily readable. If we were talking about hundreds of millions, you would be able to immediately say what it was. With that said, let's duplicate this, and instead of the view count, let's render the like count. And then we can say likes. If we save this, they're going to appear one on top of another, but we can add a direction is equal to row to our stack. A gap is going to be equal to 20 pixels. And finally, align items is going to be equal to center. This is already looking better. Now, if we expand this, we have a great looking video, which already is taking the full screen right here. And this guy created a really cool thumbnail, but we now have the video thumbnail, we have the title, we have the channel name, as well as the number of likes and views. With that said, we can now move creating the right side of the video detail page, which is the list of recommended videos. So let's collapse this and let's focus on first fetching those videos. So to fetch the videos, we can go right here inside of our use effect, and we can make a second fetch from API function call. There, we want to pass in the search query, say part is equal to snippet, and we want to get related to video ID is equal to, and then we can say ID and type is equal to video. This means that we want to get all videos related to the video ID with the following ID, and then we only want to get videos, not related channels. Once we get that, we can say .then, we get the data, and then we want to say set videos is equal to data.items. Of course, this videos is a state field, which we haven't yet created, so we can create it by saying use state, and then that's going to be videos, set videos, and at the start, they're going to be set to null. Now we have all the necessary video data. We can go back to our app. Let's go to some kind of a JavaScript mastery video like this one. There we go. And now we can try rendering those videos right here. We want to go above one last box. So right here, below the stack, above the box. And there, we're going to render one more box. That box is going to have a padding X of 2, padding Y is going to be on medium devices 1, and then on extra small devices 5. We can also give it a justify content equal to center, and align items equal to center as well. Inside of there, we want to render the videos component, which we have already created. That videos component accepts one prop, which is videos. Let's see if we properly imported it. That's coming from right here. I was missing an S at the top. And if we save this, the videos are now appearing in a row, let's say. Yep, as you can see right there. So there is one neat little trick that we can do to change that and make them appear on the right side. We're going to pass an extra prop. So let's say direction is going to be equal to column. We can go inside of that video, and there we can accept that prop right here, direction. And instead of having the direction hard-coded right here to row, we can make it dynamic and say direction or row. Meaning, first we want to check if there is a specific direction passed in and use that one. If it hasn't been passed in, then use the row. If we pass this, now they're going to appear right here, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, as you can see, they are appearing below the video, and that's because I made one little mistake. This box containing the videos was supposed to go inside of the stack. So put it just one element above, still inside of the stack, so that we have the videos, and then closing box, closing stack, and then one more closing box. Now we can go to a video, and it looks like something breaks again. So let's check it out and see what it is. It looks like it's saying cannot read properties of map inside of the videos. So it looks like sometimes it's getting the videos passed in as null. Let's go into the videos, and maybe right there, we also have to add a loader. So let's say if no videos dot length, but we have to add a question mark right here, then return a string that's going to say loading. Now, if we save this, there we go. This is working perfectly. Let's expand our browser, and there we go. Let's open up some other video. Let's go to JS Mastery, and let's go for this dashboard right here. So we have a great looking thumbnail. We have the video, which we can play, And then we have the title of that video, we have the channel name, which we can click to go to that channel, we have the number of views and the likes, and then we can scroll through all of these videos that are related to the video we're currently watching. Isn't that great? At the same time, we have the search at the top, so we can still search for some new channels, go check them out, and then navigate to the channel page, research some videos, watch them, and go about our day. So this is looking perfect. And that brings us to the end of the phenomenal video where you learned how to build a fully fledged YouTube clone application. Congrats. Now, before we go ahead and deploy our great application, let's first fix just a couple of small errors that we have, or rather just some styling inconsistencies. If we right-click and then click Inspect, and then go to, let's do iPhone 12 Pro, you can notice that there's a bit of extra space right there. But also, if we go to a small mobile, still there's space. If we go to a large one, then this white line keeps appearing right here. If we go to tablet, it is even worse. So let's go ahead and fix the size of the card on mobile devices. To do that, we can go to the video card, and then right here, we can change the width of the card. Let's first put the XS property at the start because it is extra small on the left side, and then as it grows, it goes to small, medium, and so on. So now we have extra small right there. Now with that, what we also have to change is the width of the card right there. Right now, it is always 358 pixels. Now let's expand that. Let's turn it into an object. And let's say on extra small devices, the width of the image is going to be 100%, like this. And then as it grows to small devices, it's going to be 358 pixels, like this. What we can also do is add another property right here as small 358 pixels. With this, we're making sure that the size of the card and the size of the image inside of that card will always be the same. We can also change right here medium to 320 pixels. Now the image and the actual card will always be the same. So let's check it out right now. Going back to the browser, we can see that now we have 2 cards per row. If we go to iPhone 12 Pro, we have 1 card and this is looking good. If we go to a larger device, it's looking good as well. And tablets are looking great as well. And with that, our application is now ready to be deployed. Let's go ahead and deploy it so that everybody on the internet can see it. You can put it on your portfolio and show it to your friends or potential employers. To deploy this great application, we'll be using Netlify, a free tool that allows you to easily and quickly deploy your React applications. So let's go ahead and click Login. After you log in, you can go to Sites, and then you can scroll all the way down. This is where you can drag and drop your React build folder. Now, to create that React build folder, we can close all of our files, open up the file tree, and collapse everything. Before we create our build, there's one more thing we have to do. Open up the public folder, and in there, create a new file called _redirects without a file extension. Inside of this file, you can type /*index.html and then 200. This file is used to fix one issue with Netlify and React. So just make sure to include this, and now you can create an optimized production build. We can go to View and then Terminal, press Ctrl+C to stop it from running, and then Y, clear it, and then run npm run build. This is going to initialize an optimized production build. This process usually takes about a minute, so let's give it some time and I'll be right back. And there we go. In about a minute, our application built. So now we can go right here, right-click the build folder, and click Reveal in File Explorer or Open in Finder if you're on Mac. You can then go back to the browser and then simply drag and drop the build folder right into here. The upload process usually takes just a couple of seconds, so while I'm speaking, it should be updated right now. There we go. So this was really quick. With Netlify, you're going to get this random URL right there. If you want to use this website professionally, show it in your portfolio with a dedicated domain name and fast servers, I would definitely recommend Hostinger. I've been using them for a long time now, and to everybody that needs SSL certificate, free domain name, and email, I definitely cannot recommend anything else. Netlify is great for simple sites, but if you need something professional, go for Hostinger. The link is going to be down in the description. With that said, let's go ahead and check out our deployed site. This is not something that usually happens, but when I clicked the link, it said deceptive site ahead. Interesting. Now, if we click details and then click visit this unsafe site, you can still proceed. And there we go. Our website is right here. I am not quite sure why Google triggered it as a deceptive site. That is definitely something we would have to look into. With that said, our website is now online. We can check it out. It is working exactly as it did on our local host. We can watch the videos straight from inside of our newly created YouTube clone application. Isn't this great? With that said, we've came to the end of this great video. Huge thanks to RapidAPI not only for sponsoring this video, but also for creating their phenomenal RapidAPI hub where you can find tens of thousands of different APIs which you can use to create interesting applications. If you'd want me to use some other API to create a video in the future, let me know down in the comments. With that said, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching and for coming to the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.